Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter, and we are not in the normal studio today, guys. We are doing a road trip. We are live reporting from the trenches that are the great state of New Jersey. I'm excited to be going live. I'm excited to be talking to you guys about these fights once again. We got UFC Vegas 104, and it is going down on Saturday night. And there's a lot of fights to break down, a lot of great action to get into. And how could we do it alone? We got to go with a great guest. And by popular demand, he's back once again this week. Wizz MMA in the building. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing fantastic. First and foremost, thanks to everyone who suggested me coming back on the show. That's number one. Number two, thank you, Liam, for bringing me on. And last week we had a lot of fun and we had a lot of success last week. I think we called the main card almost perfectly. So I'm really happy about that. We got to look away from the physique. That was the only L. But
I was gonna say, besides Fiziev, that one, we got to take that one on the chin. But otherwise, dude, a very sharp set of reads, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, it was great. And you know what? I'm always happy to be on here and to break down fights, especially on a late night when I have a day off tomorrow. So let's fucking cook.
You know what's funny, man? Before all was said and done, I was actually coaching at a wrestling tournament last weekend. So I'm like trying to get my bets in, like scrambling. We're going to away and we're doing all this stuff. But people had said to me, like on Patreon, whatever, they're like, are you betting anything today? I was like, the one thing I'm 100% betting is Ankalaev. Like, no matter what, I just wanted to wait for the best price. And by the end of it, dude, I booked plus 110. I booked plus 118. I was very happy with those prices, but I placed 3 wagers on the card because I basically like got to my phone, like everything ready to go at like the start of the main card. I'm like, okay, like, let's see what happens with this Bobby Green fight. And my whole thought in my betting strategy guide, I was like, take the under. But I just watched that one and he instantly dies. I was like, okay, it's a violence card. That's it. And I was like, I'm taking the under in this Jalen Turner Bahamondes fight. Why pick a side? I was like, these guys are violent as all hell. Jalen Turner goes out there, starts looking great. And then my man just basically said, like, yo, I'm not about this anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, appreciate it. Like, great memories. Thanks, everybody. And I had nothing but love and respect for Jalen Turner. Made me a shit ton of coins, for, against, this way, that way, the third. I missed one bet ever on this guy's whole fighting career, and it was him to win in round 3 against Uros Medic because he did it too damn quick. That's it. This is the only bet I didn't cash from Jalen Turner. So I want to say hats off to the tarantula, but sometimes you got to know when it's not your time anymore. And frankly, I said this on X the other day, and I stand by it 100%. 2 years ago, Jalen Turner's not getting submitted by that triangle. Not even close. The guy is too good at jiu-jitsu, guys. I'm just saying, as a practitioner, as somebody that is much more amateurish in my skill set, I know that there are steps you take when you start to get triangled that he wasn't taking because he was ready to go home and just move on with his life. And he said as much afterwards. And I think that, you could just acknowledge, like, very skilled guy. Skills normally win fights, but the will to win is maybe the most important thing in all of MMA. So we go ahead with that. And then my man, in that co-main event, I tried to get cute with it. I was like, you know what? I think Fiziev's going to win, but I have a little bit of uncertainty. Let me go with this under 2.5. Let me go with this fight not to go the distance type play. Didn't end up working out. He almost died. I was like, we're there. And then he wakes back up. Gaethje's like the worst finishing instincts I've ever seen in his whole career. He's like holding him with a chin strap and throwing short punches. Unbelievably stupid. But in any case, we end up getting to the distance there. I was like, okay, last one. It's all on Ankalaev. And he goes out there, and people afterwards were saying it was controversial. I really didn't think so. Like personally, I thought that was, when I was watching, man, live, and I'll go back and rewatch. I haven't done that yet. But when I was watching live, I saw it 3 rounds to 1 going into that 5th round. I was like, don't get knocked out. Don't do anything stupid in this 5th round. And we've got this done. So that was the way that I was seeing it. How did you see it, my man, in that main event? How did, your overall night go?
I went down 1 unit tracked just because I only had 2 bets tracked. It was Fiziv money line, and then I had a part. It was roughly KO. So that kind of saved me a little bit.
Nice, dude.
Man, when I was watching the Ankalaev fight, and even on stream last week, I mentioned that I don't think this guy's gonna hit a single takedown. And people were surprised of me saying that. I'm like, this guy is not a takedown artist. He's not wrestling in his fights all that often. Sure, he's from the Caucasus, and we're used to seeing the Russian MMA fighters land takedowns at will, and Pereira with the bad takedown defense. Defended 10 takedowns out of 10, so didn't land a single one. But I had it personally 2-2 going into the fifth, and I scored it for Ankalaev. I think it was very clear. It could have been 3-1 going into the fifth, and I wouldn't have had any issue at all. And we saw on 2 out of the 3 judges' scorecards, it was 48-47. So that's along the lines of where I was thinking, and I think that was very fair and very easy to read. Was it an exciting fight? No, but it was not. It was very hard to watch that fight. There must have been something wrong with Alex, in my opinion, just not throwing. It could be just the hesitancy of the takedown, like that fear of getting taken down, or out of condition. We saw his mouth hanging. His jaw was wide open after the first round. He was gassed. So there could have been a lot of things. I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but he's been enjoying the fruits of his labor. He's been traveling everywhere. He was in Australia the week before the fight. So props to him. I think he'll come back and have a better outing in the rematch if there is one. I'm not saying he would win by any means, but who knows? I think he'll at least be a little bit more aggressive and be able to land a little bit more head strikes, more than 11 in 5 rounds. Let's just put it that way. So I think just the ending to the card was a little disappointing, just because I thought there was so much more to that fight that could have happened, and we just missed out on it. So hopefully they run it back and we get a better showing from both guys. I want to see some takedowns landed. I want to see how Alex's jiu-jitsu is, and I want to see how Ankalaev deals with a little bit more of a pressure and aggressive striking coming at him. So overall, really fun card to watch. I think the prelims delivered all the way up until basically the main. So really happy to watch that card live.
Hell yeah, my man. I missed most of it. I honestly have to go back and rewatch a lot of that card. I normally watch every UFC card start to finish, but during wrestling season, it gets a little bit trickier. And, just looking at, the results, a lot of it tracked with my expectations. I think, Francis Marshall, I predicted him to win a split decision in my article. Brutal run out there, right? Huh? He ends up losing the split decision in a controversial fashion. The underdog bettors did not come through in that case, but plenty more opportunities this week, my man. And without further ado, why don't we start like we always do with the first fight of the night on UFC Vegas 104? And my man, this is maybe the talk of the Twitter streets, right? This is the one that everybody has a strong opinion on. Yunesi Dubin. It was the first comment on our stream today. I'll go back and pull it up. Spaffron in the chat says, I heart Yunesi. Yunesi Dubin, the 6-0 sensation coming in off of a brutal knockout, a massive upset on the Contender Series. She's taking on Carly Giudice, who has fought, Gabriela Fernandez, a loss that aged quite well, right? Gabriela Fernandez obviously got a breakthrough win in her career in her next outing. So we've seen Carly Giudice. She can go out there and scrap and compete, but hasn't broken through yet at this level. Very inexperienced in her own right, only 5 professional fights. So you've got 2 women with essentially, a very small amount of combined professional experience. I think there's a lot of variance in a fight like this. I think the things that we can know coming in is that it's more likely Carly Giudice is going to land a lot of volume just based on what we've seen. She's proven to do it over 15 minutes. She's proven to do it when she's getting hit, when she's getting hurt. She's fought through adversity. So she's a tough chick. I think we could all agree about that. Is she very skilled at mixed martial arts? Like, I think she throws decent combinations. I think, like a lot of young MMA fighters, she's got good offense. Defense really leaves a lot to be desired. So, I think the same can be said of Dubin in some ways. Does she throw as much? No. But does she have power for WMMA? It seems like she does in a small sample size. Like, even though she was able to land clean, connect on the chin of her opponent who did not have great defense, guys, just like be honest with yourselves. How many people in WMMA can connect with a clean power punch and actually hurt somebody and put them down? Like, we could probably count them on 3 hands. Like, between me and Wizz, we could count those women. So it's like, that's just the reality of the sport right now. There's not a lot of knockdowns. There's not a lot of even big moments in WMMA where people get hurt on the feet, it's a little bit fewer and farther between. There's a reason a lot of these WMMA fights are chalked minus 500 to go the distance. So I think when you're looking at, a woman like Dubin, who comes off of a big knockout, she goes from being poor, having no status, resources, anything like that to advance her career, to now being put in a position where, those resources are going to be made available to her. And, she's going to get better training and better nutrition and better, looks in the gym and all these kind of things. So I think that overall, Giudice, I thought should be favored here. I did a pre-tape lean that I sent to Patreon at the beginning of the week before I look at any lines. And you know what I said? I said Giudice ? LOL. Like, I didn't know what the line was going to be. I was like, I think she should probably be favored. But like, ultimately, if you have zero defense, like you look at the stat lines, guys, go to UFCstats.com. Look at the stat lines for these two women. They're comical. They both are like landing 20, getting hit 11 times a minute. It's like, they're just standing there like, just like throwing rock'em sock'em robots. Like, if you play that game and one person's got power, one person doesn't, like, could definitely go the way of the power striker, but also the power striker when they don't find the finish, when they don't land explosively. And it's WMMA. You don't want to rely on that every time out. If you don't find that finish, you're probably going to be out there getting outlanded over the course of 15 minutes. Do you have any other upside to your game? Can you wrestle? Are you going to take her to the ground? Like, probably not. So those are the reasons why, if it was like a minus 110 pick'em price, like, it's Giudice for me, like, clearly. But number is everything for me in mixed martial arts. And like, confidence intervals is what I believe in. I do not have a very high confidence interval in Carly Giudice if my first thought is Giudice ? LOL. It's like, I basically think the fight's a crapshoot and Giudice should have the better process. Like, if you said like logically who wins, how illogical is this sport, guys? Jalen Turner logically should win when he's whooping the guy's ass in the first 3 minutes and having everything his way and just finds a way to get elbowed from the bottom and put himself in a triangle and find his way out of there all in one round, right? The self-immolation that normally takes place in the second or the third round had been advanced to the first round. And that's the kind of thing where I'm now looking at a girl who's got 5 fights as a professional, and she's gotten beat up in a couple of them, like gone out there, fought hard, admirably, like could have won, but got beat up as well. And now I'm supposed to say like, yeah, she's a minus 500, like against anybody. I don't really see that personally. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation, bottom line. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of really strong takes on this fight, and I don't get it. I mean, obviously, we've seen Giudice 2 split decision losses to some really, I mean, I guess Bruna is pretty decent. I personally do like Giudice's process. I like that she throws volume. The one issue is that she gets hit a lot. Now, with Dubin, we really don't have much tape beyond tape that we have 6 years ago. So within those 6 years, she could have made a ton of improvements. So I'm not going to discredit that at all. And then now that she's training up in Colorado at elevation, she's going to be at a 3-inch reach and height disadvantage here. I just, whenever you're betting on a WMMA fighter whose process is just winging overhands, we haven't seen her do anything else, you just have to back the tape. And I think Giudice is going to be able to go out there and maybe even 30-27 this chick. But obviously, that's just not a hot take at all. She's minus 3 to 4x for a reason. I think a way that I would want to play this fight is I think Giudice is going to get an attritional TKO here on the feet. It could be round 2 or round 3. That's what I'm going with. Respectively, those numbers are plus 1,000 and plus 1,250. So I'm definitely going to be involved there. I personally think that Dubin, if she doesn't land the kill shot in that first round, she'll start to gas. I know she's in Colorado, but things don't change over one camp. And I just trust Carly a tad bit more. Am I saying that she's the lock of the week? No. I know a lot of really sharp bettors that don't usually lay these price tags on anyone, laying 5+ units on Giudice. So it speaks a lot to me, and I got to respect that side too. But yeah, I think it's Giudice TKO or pass. You don't want to be laying this heavy favorite number on WMMA. low level WMMA, just to, to keep it at that.
I mean, like, with all due respect, like, this is a sincere question. What would Shannon Clark be lined against Carly Judice?
I think Shannon Clark would likely be a minus 500-600 just because of the takedown threat and jiu-jitsu.
Like, and she was like a minus 2,000 favorite against Dubin. Everybody agreed, like, Shannon Clark is the one. Like, she ain't the two, she's the one. That's what everybody was saying about Shannon Clark. God, I thought Shannon Clark had like real upside because of her rare physicality in WMMA, her aggression, her willingness to go out there and attack in all positions. And she got completely exposed. Like,
and we saw her the next fight in go against Cheyenne
go
Bowers.
back and win again.
Offered her a very freaking hard test, and I think she won that fight. So Cheyenne Bowers is someone I think will be in the UFC at some point. So yeah, it was just a very odd outcome. I think it was one of those outliers, but credit to Dubin, she landed the shot, and I've never seen a girl go out stiff like that in a long time in WMMA. So props to Dubin, she definitely carries that power, but it just depends on if she's able to land it.
Yeah, this is one where I'm going to look into a couple things. Like, honestly, I'm going to look into what the betting market looks like. Like, if all the money's on Dubin and they're keeping it at plus 380, she's dead in the water, in my opinion. So I'm going to look into that. I'm going to look into a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. I wasn't blown away by her media day photos, to tell you the truth. Like, I was hoping to see like a physical transformation, like looks like $1 million. She looked all right, but like you said, it's one training camp. The body composition could still. She doesn't look like Shannon Clark, right? She didn't change like that overnight. I would love to see that. Some anabolic, signage, that would be great. But we probably spent plenty of time on this fight. I just think, like, when it gets down to it, a woman with less than fucking 6 professional fights is a minus 500 favorite coming off a bunch of losses. Like, my old wrestling coach used to say, there ain't no such thing as a good loss. Like, like, you don't want to let losing become a habit. And by the way, like, she reminds me of Zaruk Adashev, like,
Oh yeah,
half decent, like, goes out there and competes, but like at the end of the day, you got 5 fights, And I'm not saying Dubin is like some master of MMA. She's got so much experience. I'm just saying, like, what differentiates her from Carly Judice? Like the volume, like, I get it. Like, yeah, she throws more volume, but like, what if she throws more volume and gets rocked once per round and then loses the fight? It's like, that's just the way that I see, like, I always think about the contrarian angle. What could go wrong? And I'm like, what could fucking go wrong laying minus 500 on the lowest level WMMA fight that they might have booked in 2025? It's like, all right, I don't know. It could be anything, It's like, but I won't try and be Nostradamus, man. For me, dog or pass. I'll live with the variance there. Next up, my man, let's talk about another WMMA classic. We got Josiane Nunes taking on Priscilla Zombie Girl Cachoeira. Wizz, why don't you lead us off, my brother? How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, in this fight, we have another power puncher essentially in Josiane Nunes going up against someone who eats a lot of punches in Priscilla Cachoeira. I'm not going to say a mirror matchup to the first fight we were talking about, but at a somewhat of a higher level, I'll say. Huge size discrepancy here. 5 inches of height. She's at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, which is kind of bizarre. But the one thing that I do like seeing on the Priscilla side is that she's training with Amanda Nunes this camp, and Amanda Nunes herself, she's looked like she may be trying to make a comeback to MMA. She's in great shape, so you can count on Priscilla getting some really good rounds in the gym there with Amanda. So that's one thing I like to see on the underdog side. Josiane Nunes, not too long ago, she was about to lose a fight to what was that chick's name? I'm drawing a blank here. It was 1-1 going into third. She got rocked in the first round. Let me look this up because it's going to bug me. Oh, Chelsea Chandler. And then she just came back to win after Chelsea gassed out. And then against Jacqueline Cavalcanti, I don't really think that was a split decision. She probably lost to 30-27 there, but obviously judging has not been the best in the past year and a half. On the Priscilla side, you don't like her tape when she's getting hit. She gets hit plenty. But the one thing that I can give her is toughness, and you just can't teach toughness in the sport. Josiane Nunes, yes, she is a power puncher and she has put a lot of girls out. But when you have a girl on the other side and Priscilla, who's going to be the larger female out there, who's going to be a lot tougher than most of the opponents that Josiane has faced, those are some things that I like when I get a plus 170 price tag here. And I think actually the line has moved a little bit. Actually, no, plus 161 is current odds on Bet Online. Fight doesn't go at plus 150 is not the worst look in the world, but to me, what interests me the most is Priscilla Cachoeira plus 3.5 at minus 180. I know you got to lay some juice there, but I just don't see her getting finished here. And I do think that she can win outright. She has a couple of iterations where she can actually dominate in the later rounds of this fight when Josiane is kind of gassed out and the lactic acid builds up in her hands after she wings those bombs. As long as Priscilla can, weather the storm in round one, also a good live betting opportunity. So for me, all my attention is pointed on the Priscilla side. I think she is going to be able to outland Josiane at distance just due to the volume difference here and just her being a lot more tough. Josiane herself gets hit a lot too. Let's not forget. So yeah, give me Priscilla here. I like that she's training with Amanda Nunes a lot. This is going to be a fun fight to watch. And I'll definitely be tuned in.
Yeah, I'll be brief about this one, man. This is a fight where, I don't feel like I need to get involved, but if I was to play a side, it's got to be Cachoeira or pass. Josiane Nunes, I don't rate her ground game. I mentioned that before the Chelsea Chandler fight. I thought Chelsea Chandler kind of fought a poor version of a game plan and still went out there and got the win anyway. So when I look at Josiane Nunes, she's beaten a couple low-level girls. She's got power in her hands. I think Priscilla Cachoeira can match that. I think Priscilla Cachoeira maybe could have grappling success in this fight if she looks to pursue it. So I don't really lean towards playing this fight, but if I'm going to go out there and put money on this one, I think it'd have to be Cachoeira. Like you said, willing to take a beating, willing to go out there and absorb damage at the best of times, right? Like against really good high-level women. And Josiane Nunes does not have the most proven resume, in my opinion. So for me, Zombie Girl is going to go out there and make it an honest fight. But I don't feel, like I need to get involved, but at plus 170, it's like, it's got to be a click on that side or just pass.
Agreed.
My man, I'm glad we see that one the same way. Shout out to Monotone in the chat. Very sharp guy. I love his NBA show that he does. So shout out to Monotone. But Nunes fights like an absolute dog, he says. I agree with that. I just think Cachoeira, same thing, just a little bit more experienced. So for me, that's something that I'm watching here. It's just, can Nunes overcome that kind of experience from Cachoeira? Because Cachoeira has been in those dogfights. She's fought the best in the division. And meanwhile, Nunes, she's kind of struggling at times with the dregs of the division, with no disrespect. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on this fight, Wiz?
No, I think I took a couple minutes too long on this breakdown.
No worries, man. So I want to just say shout out to the chat. We've got some people spamming, but we also got Gamblestein says shout out to me. Catch always cheats, says Spaffron. That's correct. So she really cares about your money. Zombie Girl Mario Barrios is in the chat. Our guy Wiz as well. So a lot of great sharp comments. Appreciate that always. Next up, guys, we got Andre Lima taking on Daniel Barres, and I'll lead us off on this one. I think both these guys are good fighters, man. I had said on my initial lean, looks before I looked at any prices, anything like that. I said Barres if he's the dog, and he's a pretty sizable dog in this spot. Listen, I think Andre Lima is a good fighter, but he's an undefeated guy. And I think that when you have an undefeated prospect, it can go two ways. Most guys do not become undefeated UFC champions. So they find veteran tests and they struggle, and then they make corrections to their game and they improve and they get better. And you've got a guy here who's very young and coming along and making, some real improvements over time, right? Like Andre Lima clearly getting better. He's got good skills. He's pretty polished everywhere. He's not a slouch anywhere. But when it comes down to it, Did we see guys like test him, push him, like make him have honest fights? Yeah. And I think that when you look at Daniel Barres, he basically has honest fights with everybody. You know, he's a very dangerous flyweight. When you look at what he brings to the table, I really respect his ground game. You know, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about his kickboxing and stuff. Like, he does have good striking, right? We saw a guy who's very tough, a guy who's pretty durable, and Victor Altamirano get bing, almost sparked out in that first exchange because he caught a kick and put him out of position. Shout out to Miguel Class, I believe his name is, on X, who basically posted that clip. I thought it was an awesome clip. And at the time, I had predicted Barres via knockout. I was like, oh, he's got him. And then you see Victor Altamirano is a tough son of a gun, man. He fought his way back in. But Daniel Barres, tough guy, good in all positions. You know, he loses to Jafel Filo, and people want to write him off. Like, Jafel Filo is just a damn good fighter, you know, and we've seen that. He basically gave Makayev his toughest test in the UFC. You know, it's him or Manel Kape. And then he's gone out there and beaten really quality guys. So I really respect Jafel Filo's game. I think that he's extremely talented on the ground. So overall, like, do I think that Andre Lima is a bad fighter or a fraud or any of these things? Like, no, obviously not. But do I think he's minus 310 against Daniel Barres, who's been in a lot of really tough fights, right? You go back and look, Carlos Hernandez, another guy who's been around the UFC and gotten some wins and had some tough fights, but he's been in a lot of close fights. You know, you look at that fight, Daniel Barres arguably won that fight, right? And he had to go out and earn it more, go out and get more finishes, go out and prove it. So this guy, Daniel Barres, dangerous in all positions, gotten finishes, gone to close decisions where you could have raised his hand at the end. Nobody would have batted an eye. And you're giving me a big plus money price tag. And he's basically in a must-win situation, right? If he loses this one, it's like, you know, your road in the UFC is basically done. Whereas if he beats Andre Lima, he inserts himself into that conversation by saying, hey, I can go out there and beat these tough up-and-coming guys, these guys that everybody respects. I'm here. I'm the one. I'm real. And you go out there and lose to another vet, another savvy guy like Jafel Filo, that doesn't tell me, like, I got to write you off now. He's a tough guy. He's got good wins. He's got tough losses against good fighters. I think he's going to go out there and compete, make it honest. And, you know, I respect Lima, but I just think that in this range, I can't get behind him, right? We saw him starting to struggle when he got the bite of the night. It was almost like a relief. You're like, oh, thank God, you know, bail me out. Like, he was starting to get a little tired. He was starting to get a little fatigued, but his opponent was already concussed. So thank God, you know, he starts biting him and, you know, he's in like autopilot mentally. God bless him, right? It worked out, but he was starting to fatigue. He was starting to feel the pressure. The one thing about Daniel Barres, he's going to come out and fight you. He's going to come out, get in your face, throw hard, try and, you know, set the tone. And Andre Lima, you know, I do think he's going to counter. He's going to do his stuff, but could he get clipped? Could he get into some sketchy grappling exchanges? Could the pressure start to wear him down over time? My answer is yes. I honestly think it could. So I think it's a good, honest fight. And I respect both guys. My pick, if you said gun to your head, like, yeah, give me Lima, but I would have made him a minus 150. And, you know, he's a massive favorite in this spot. I'm not sure I agree with that. How about you?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's spot on. We've seen Barres go tooth and nail with a lot of these guys. And the one thing I like about Barres is he's an aggressive striker. And when we saw Andre Lima go up against Luis Severino, Severino hurt him on several occasions. That's one thing that stood out to me when retaping this. And I think if that bite didn't happen, I think Severino was on his way to winning that fight as an underdog as well, if we remember. I think Barres is going to be able to stay in Lima's face. The one thing I don't like about Lima's overall style is that he's just very low volume. And if you're low volume going up against someone who's very aggressive in the striking realm, you're either going to look to take him down or you're likely going to get hit and touched up a bit. You don't want to get touched up by Barres. This guy carries a lot of power. And you know what? He proved me wrong in his decision fight there. So I think his cardio has started to improve a little bit. Sure, he's at a 10-year age disadvantage here, and we all have that stat in our mind of 10-year age gap and what the percentages look like in terms of a win-loss ratio. Especially at 125, it is a little bit concerning. I want to wait and see how Barres looks on the scales before I pull the trigger on anything, but I'm personally looking at the Barras wins inside the distance. I think most of the finish equity is going to be on the Barras side. If I were to count anything in terms of the Lima finish side, it's going to be mainly a sub, and I don't really rate Lima's sub game as highly as I do with Jeff Filio. So I think the number is big enough for me to play it. And then even if you wanted to play both the ITD for Barras at 550 and also the points at 550, that's current market on Bet Online. I wouldn't mind that at all. I think I'll be splitting a unit on those two bets personally. I just think that Barras is going to be someone that will test Lima, will test his chin early on at least, and give him an honest fight, similar to what you're saying. The volume is going to be anytime a power pressure fighter goes up against someone with low volume, I'm interested, especially at these big dog odds. So give me Daniel Barras. I think he finds the upset here.
I absolutely love it, my man. So we're kind of seeing the board the same. I think we had a little bit of disagreement on the first fight, but since then, kind of seeing the board the same. And I like to see that, my man. Lord willing, we'll both have a very big weekend. And hopefully, everybody in the chat, the same thing can be said. Many different ways to profit on a fight card. So, whether it's this fight, a different fight, hopefully, you guys find good spots that you like. Next up, though, let's talk about Sam Hughes.
Fight. Just
what's that, buddy?
One last thing quickly on the Barras side. I think he's a great DraftKings play. I know who was it that mentioned DK earlier. I rarely ever give DK plays. Gamblestein. Yeah, I agree. I think he's a great DraftKings pick for this week. I think he can outscore a lot.
There you go. So I tend to agree. I like to look at like specific DK box scores before I put out like my DraftKings picks, but I do put those out on Roto Grinders every week. I've been on a pretty good roll with those. So Lord willing, we can keep that going. Unfortunately, one of my guys was Kuniev last week, and then he doesn't even end up getting to fight because Curtis Blades was sick. So we'll have to revisit that one at a later time and date if that fight even gets rebooked. But we'll have to see. In any case, though, my man, we got Sam Hughes taking on Stephanie Luciano and Wizz. We'll kick it off to you first, my brother. Women's 115, last women's fight on the card. Why don't you give us your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is another fight that has struck a lot of debate on Twitter, and people saying that, oh, Sam Hughes is going to audit her. And then there's some people with very passionate takes on putting Luciano in parlays. And I think this is just a classic stay away fight where it's a prove me spot for Luciano. And then also on the Hughes side, let's see if she's evolved her game a little bit more in terms of her aggressiveness. Because the one thing we can count on with Hughes is she will walk forward and she will have the cardio to last 3 rounds. She'll last 6 rounds if she needs to. Luciano, she has her experience deficiencies, that's for sure. Back-to-back fights against Alencar. I mean, not the greatest thing in the world, but in the second fight, she really put a beating on Alencar, and I knew a lot of people were on the Alencar side there. They thought she was gonna take her down and submit her. We won't have that fear here with Sam Hughes. She's not really a takedown artist. She's just gonna be in your face, and if we remember, Sam Hughes is a punching bag, with a lack of better terms, with all due respect. She gets hit a lot. Her striking defense is not good. And Luciano, the one thing I do like about her is her pressure. I like that she throws everything straight and lands with power. So she could win the moments here. So it's a classic case of moment winner versus minute winner. I think if Luciano just continues fighting the way she was against Alencar, really pressing her against the cage, landing the straight shots, and not allowing Sam Hughes to walk forward, as long as the cardio checks out, I do think Luciano wins this fight, but not a fight I have any interest on in terms of betting, if I'm being completely honest. This is very, very much a smoke break kind of fight. So I'm just going to pass it along to you. Not too much thoughts there.
Yeah, I honestly have to tape Luciano. I don't even remember her 2-fight series with Alencar very well. But what I will say is, I just think like I don't mean to be like Johnny Underdog guy, but like when I look at this sport, you really have to have like a lot of baseline skills, advantages, like things on paper that make me think like, wow, head and shoulders, you are above this fighter, to make me think that you should be a big favorite. And on the Luciano side, like she's young. She's coming off Contender Series. Otherwise, like I don't really see what the specific huge advantage is. Sam Hughes, I'm not like inspired by her, but when you look at the Jacqueline Amorim fight, for example, like Amorim, in my opinion, is like way more proven as a fighter than Luciano. Like, and she has a clear skill set edge, which is jiu-jitsu. And Sam Hughes cheated her ass off. Like, she will fight for your money, like tooth and nail. Like, go out there, cheat, do whatever it takes. Like Andre Lima kind of does the same thing, but he's always the favorite. She's always the dog, and she'll go out there and fight for that money as a dog. Like, and I think that looking at Sam Hughes and who she's fought, how she's performed, she just almost always makes it a pretty honest fight. And for Luciano, like going to draw with Alan Carr, I don't know that that's going to age particularly well. I think Alan Carr has like some good baseline combat skills, and I just don't know that she's made it into a very functional MMA game, personally. So, we'll have to wait and see. More to be seen in that department. But overall, it's like Sam Hughes definitely on the level, definitely a UFC level fighter, and Luciano like arguably isn't. So let's find out. She's got a lot more to prove in my opinion, and yet she's the prohibitive favorite. So it's just an obvious dogger pass for me. But I think Wiz kind of hit the nail on the head. Maybe pass, gather data here, maybe bet it live after you get a feel after 2 minutes. But I just don't have a very strong read on this one either. I just like gut level, like Sam Hughes at over 2XX, like it just doesn't make sense to me.
Agreed.
All right.
Yeah, nothing more to say on that one.
Next up, we got Josias Musasa taking on Carlos Vera. And from my first read on Patreon, I feel like I kind of nailed this one, which is I basically said, I was like, I got Musasa here or Vera by submission. And I still feel that way after taping this fight. I taped it actually right before we got on the air. And I came away thinking like Musasa has some of the right ideas in the wrestling, like how to get back up and things like that. A lot of it came from like, the bottom position is about like saying like, you're not going to hold me down, like, and just being very physical and using your energy and like doing what it takes to get back up. Like he does a lot of that, but I have to be honest with you guys. Like when I rewatched that Rinya Nakamura fight, Rinya, for all of his faults, and by the way, I gave a very compelling case on this show for why Muin Gafurov would beat Rinya Nakamura, and then I didn't bet it because I'm an idiot. But if you go back and watch, that is a stone cold fact. I gave like minute by minute breakdown. I'm like, he's had like 30 professional fights. I was like, Rinya is okay. He's not that great. But when you go back and look, guys, Rinya is what? Physical, right? Strong, good wrestler, and he could scramble. So when you watch that fight, like Vera was in on a bunch of weird leg entanglements and got in on a bunch of like reverse triangle setups and all this shit. And Rinya was able to scramble with him position for position. Rinya is very comfortable in a grappling oriented fight. He's not a good striker and he doesn't do that much damage. So for me, the dynamic of this fight is a lot different because I do think there is a world in which Carlos Vera tries to get cute, go for some leg entanglement. Musasa goes like, hold the ankle, bing, 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 and just bounces his head like a Pez dispenser. Absolutely could see a world in which that happens. But on the other side, like it's one thing for some guy to go out there and try and put you through the wrestling paces and then kind of gassed himself out, kind of made some mistakes, gassed himself out. It's a whole different thing for a guy to put you through the leg lock series and a guy to start locking you up and a guy to start putting you in some really awkward situations. And by the way, guys, like that is when people panic. That is when people tap. That is when people like, by the way, get their knees ripped apart when they really don't know what's going on, right? And they start making bad decisions. So for me, Carlos Vera does have like a clear path to victory in this fight. The submission is 12-1. His money line is 6-1. And like, I think those are both wrong. Do I think Musasa should be favored? Yes. Do I think Musasa KO is probably the most likely outcome in this fight? I do. Even though Vera's a tough guy, like Musasa, they gave him the KO Wizard nickname for a reason, right? The guy's going to go out there and hurt people more often than not. But Vera showed me in that last fight, like he was hurt. Like he literally like hurt his shoulder. He kept trying. He re-guarded a million times. Like the guy's clearly got a ground game and clearly has a process to what he does. And he's going to keep looking for offense. He got into several like, deep half guard situations and like very complicated grappling situations that if you don't have those answers, you're going to get exposed. So I do think fun fight, interesting fight. And we've got something special, unexpected. It is a power panel type of show for the first time in a long time. And guys, when you see who is waiting in the backstage, we've got somebody who's loading up. We've got somebody who has been a longtime friend of the show. It's been a while since they've been here, but we're excited to see what they've got to say. Back on the show once again, Lucrative James in the building. How are you, my brother? Been too long.
Making me blush, bro. You're making me blush. What's going on, boys? How you doing?
Cheers to you, my man. It's been too long. We're having a great time, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, man. Happy to be on, bro. I just saw your message right now. I was in the office, as you can see, locked in, doing some work, doing my last-minute bets. So going to be excited to talk to that about you. Shout out to my man, Wizz. I haven't seen you in a long time, but I know you've been doing your thing, Wizz. So good to be live, bro. And I don't think I've been on with you, Liam, for like a couple of years, man. So yeah, it's good to be back on the channel.
Bro. 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years too long.
Time goes like that, because I remember me and you, Wizz, we used to do our Instagram lives like 4 or 5 COVID times, you know. And then Liam, I remember when we first hopped on a few years ago. But anyway, don't want to interrupt. We can carry on with the fights. But yeah, good to be on, boys.
No, dude, it's not an interruption at all. It's a pleasure to have you, my man. We have just been getting back into having a rotating panel of guests, and my man, the power panel has not reassembled in literally years. So if Gordo was here, we would be having a 4-man revolution right now. But in any case, we've got 3 of my favorite opinions in MMA. So I'm excited to hear what these gentlemen have to say. I'm going to kick it over to our guest. First and foremost, our guy Wizz, you've been waiting in the corral right there. What do you have to say about this fight? What do you think about my take here, which is that Carlos Vera has a clear path to a submission in this fight? But if he doesn't get it, he's probably going to get sparked out. What do you think?
No, I think what you said was spot on. Whenever you face someone that's going to go for leg locks, it's instant panic, especially with someone that really does not have jiu-jitsu experience. And that's coming from firsthand experience. I'm going to tell you that. When people were going and hitting me with leg locks, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm tapping real quick. It's just like a sudden feeling of panic, and you don't know what to do. But if he does not get that, I think he's just going to get his head pounded through the canvas. Let's not forget, Mousasi was a plus 170 underdog to Tanzilovi in that Contender Series fight, because everyone thought the same thing, that he was going to take him down and either drown him in the wrestling or submit him. And he just proved to have too much power and athleticism to work up from those positions. And I just don't think Carlos Vera is that kind of wrestler to be able to hold him down. But the leg locks are going to be a serious issue. Another case here where we have 11-year age gap too. I'm just going to have to, it's no hot take. I'm going to have to predict the Wizz by KO. It just seems right. But yeah, I think it's Mousasi KO. Vera by sub is live. I just don't really want to bet that.
Yeah, I kind of like fight not to go and Vera sub. Like, it's just like my instincts here. Like Vera money line, I would not get cute, because it's like at 6-1, if he goes out there and like TKO's the guy from top position and I don't have the money line in that instance, I'd probably puke in my hands. But I think that's kind of the way that I look at this, is like, do I think Mousasi is the brighter prospect, like going to do more good things in the UFC? Oh, 1000%. But the fight is on Saturday. And like, do I think his jiu-jitsu is going to be as good as Vera's by Saturday night? Fuck no. So that's just my overall take. Lucrative, what do you think about this one, my man? Do you have any hot takes here? Do you think the KO Wizard is going to put a highlight reel together using Carlos Vera's body? What do you think?
Yeah, I do think so, man. I don't have a hot take in this one. Like, it's a pretty easy fight to break down, right? I mean, Vera's going to obviously do his karate type weird shit on the feet and try and hopefully get Mousasi to the ground. If he can do it, we don't really know how Mousasi's going to hold up. I think he's going to be all right. I think he'll be all right, and he'll use his athleticism to power out of some moves. Obviously, we speak about the leg locks, right? You can still use athleticism to get out of leg locks, leg entanglements, any movements in general, right? Let's listen. If it's fully locked in, like it is what it is, right? You're probably going to snap a limb or something. But I believe that his athleticism will probably just allow him to, if he gets in any sort of danger, scramble out of it. And it's not out of the realm of possibility Vera catches a sub here, but more than likely, I believe that Mousasi will ground and pound his face into oblivion if Vera does end up on the bottom, to which I do believe he will. I don't think Vera's got amazing wrestling. I don't think he's going to be able to consistently take Mousasi down and maybe get top position. He's just not athletic enough, man. Mousasi is so athletic. Like, he's way stronger here, way more physical. So Vera might be reduced to pulling guard. Vera might be reduced to laying on his back. And in MMA, it can work, but a lot of times it doesn't work. And one of my friends texted me the other day, someone who's very sharp, who I speak to every week about fights. And he said, I could see something like Ryan Hall versus Ilia Topuria in this one. And not so much the exact fight, how it plays out, but the finishing sequence. And I really could see a ground and pound here where maybe he's going for some leg lock and he just gets punched. So yeah, I think TKO is going to happen probably round 2. So I think they set the 1.5. I think 1.5 is pretty sharp. I don't know exactly when it's going to come, but yeah, I'd say Mousasi TKO round 2.
Yeah, looking at the prices on this fight, I would rather have the under 2.5 at -152, or the fight doesn't go at -200 than Mousasi -700. Just because, like, if everything goes right for him, like, I agree with you guys, it's going to smash this guy's face. But if it doesn't go right, the one thing is, I look back at that Rinya Nakamura fight, and I think Rinya's stock is down right now for obvious reasons. But if you look at what he does well, the guy can scramble, he can move, and he is athletic. So when you combine like an ability to scramble with athleticism, it gives you the ability to kind of no-sell a lot of jiu-jitsu attempts, right? We've seen that throughout UFC history. But when you watch that Carlos Vera fight, man, he had a couple interesting attempts. Like, he really did. You look back at the reverse inverted triangle. He got kind of close on locking that up. Rinya was able to push away. He's too physical. Then you look at some of those leg entanglements. He doesn't just like lock up your leg. He follows you to the back take. And then we again saw Rinya just turn in on top, get back on top of him. But the difference between these two guys is Rinya Nakamura is not a violent guy. He's just not a violent guy. So he's on top. He's like rolling wrists. He looks like a wrestler out there. And meanwhile, if Mousasi's in those same positions, he's going to be going huck, and just trying to kill the guy. So for me, that's the difference here. Way more violent fight than the last time out. And I thought that Tanzalov guy was trying to like wrestle, neutralize. He was trying to anti-fight as opposed to, Carlos Vera, who's going to try and submit this guy. As far as I'm concerned, like, he's going to go out there and really commit to grappling offense in every position. For me, this fight, the one analog it kind of reminds me of in terms of what it could look like, best case scenario for Vera, is like Jekka Seregi against Weston Wilson, where everybody's like, Jekka, he's so explosive, he's got this knockout power. And then it's like one jiu-jitsu exchange and you're like, oh, fuck, he's a white belt. Golly. Like, and that's the thing that makes me like the fight not to go. I think there's so many paths to this fight ending in violent fashion, whether it's somebody getting to their submission game in the Vera side or whether it's Mousasi just pounding him out. I feel like there's a lot of violent potential. Anything you guys want to add before we move to the next one, fellas?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I don't like
all right. Next up, we got Su Young Yu taking on AJ Cunningham. Big price tag for a guy coming off the road to UFC where he had some close fights. I expected him to have a close fight in that road to UFC final. I do think he's got some fun grappling transitions. He's a cool guy to watch, but I do not think he's the kind of guy you should be trusted at a -700 in the UFC debut. AJ Cunningham, he's a tough sell as a click just in general, right? The guy is like a walking punching bag, doesn't have very many plus level MMA skills, but toughness is there. Willingness to fight is there. Going to go out there and give an honest account every time. So big underdog price. What do you guys think of this one? We'll start with you. Lucrative. How do you feel about this one, man?
Yeah, I don't usually say, I agree with Cameron here. I see this comment, and I don't usually say wait to the weigh-in because, I've seen guys literally die on the weigh-in scale and then go out and get a first round knockout or a 3-round grinding decision. And then I've seen fighters look absolutely amazing at a new weight class and get folded in round 1. So it's always tough to, know how fighters will perform regardless of how they look on the weigh-ins. But I think when someone's dropping 2 weight classes, maybe I do want to watch that weigh-in. I'm honestly looking to potentially have a bet on AJ Cunningham here. I mean, at the end of the day, boys, the game is about value. And if there's clear value, you don't always have to bet it. But this could be crazy value. I honestly think this could be a pick 'em fight. Some people will think that is absolutely insane. How dare you even suggest that? And, maybe I'm going a little bit hyperbole. Maybe I say 55%, minus 123 or something to you. But we don't know how Yu's going to perform later in the rounds when someone like AJ Cunningham doesn't get submitted from the first exchange. Because, by the way, Yu's not this crazy submission gut threat, to be honest. I don't think so. And then AJ Cunningham is training with Bryce Mitchell regularly. So I believe that he knows how to survive. Now, if you go back on the regional scene, I've seen this guy make stupid mistakes on the mat. He puts his arm into stuff, he puts his head into stuff. But the thing is, he doesn't get submitted. So he's got very good submission defense. He just gets caught a lot in submissions. So if he gets caught in a couple of submissions but doesn't get submitted, I've seen you slow down a little bit before. I've seen AJ Cunningham push late. So if he gets into round 2 and round 3, I think that you're going to be sweating holding a U ticket. I do expect him to get into round 2 and round 3. So do the bookies. It's minus 200 to go over 2.5 rounds. So it's minus 200 to get into the 8th minute of the fight. And I honestly think that if the minus 200 is correct and we do get there, I don't think you're going to be liking a U bet. I just don't, man. Cunningham, yeah, he got beat up bad by Ludovic Klein, but he was landing some big shots. And that was up at 155 against someone who's an absolute beast. And obviously, outside of that, he's shown some deficiencies in the UFC. But I don't know, man. I don't see how you can get to this price tag. Also, if you go back and watch that Stephen Wynn fight, there is a break in the action, and then he got knocked down right after. If there's no break in the action with 10 seconds left on the clock, he doesn't get knocked down. We don't know how the fight's going to go from then. Because it's not like Nguyen was just running away with it completely from then. I also believe that Cunningham comes on late in fights. So I don't know, man. If this Korean dude doesn't get his takedowns going consistently, and we don't know if he will at 135, AJ could be a big, strong guy. This could be a massive, one of the biggest upsets since Peyton Talbot and Raoni Barcelos. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think plus 450 is fine. I haven't took a shot yet. Like I said, I might see the weigh-ins, but I'm probably going to put 1 unit on it, to be honest.
I absolutely love it. I love looking for big underdogs. And, when you look at Yu's game, I agree with you. Do I think that Cunningham is good? No. But do I think that Yu is a proven UFC level commodity? No, I don't really think that either. So I think that there's a lot of unknowns here, and unknowns should push a line closer to 50-50, not minus 700 to the debutante. So I tend to agree with you, man. In this kind of case, it's clear value where it's dog or pass. Wiz, do you agree with us, or are we out to lunch? Is you about to go, expose AJ Cunningham?
We talked about this a little bit earlier in the Cachoeira fight. You cannot teach toughness. And just for those who don't know the story behind Cunningham, please research it. It's a very tough story to read, but I'm very happy that the guy made it out of it. And that on its own just speaks volumes of this guy's toughness and his willingness to at least try and stay in there. And one thing about me that I love doing is fading Eurotrash and fading Road to UFC winners. It just, you cannot trust those 2 categories in terms of MMA. So for me, I do think AJ Cunningham, if he looks good on the scales and by the looks of it on his training and on IG, it looks like he's almost at weight. So I want to take a shot on Cunningham. It's just, you have to go into this fight knowing that there is a very big opportunity for him to just look similar to how he did against Ludovic, where he's just a punching bag and he just survives, or he's able to take the fight to you on the feet again, and you on himself in the striking realm is not all that impressive either. Doesn't really carry that kind of power. And I think Cunningham now training with a lot of good guys like Gutierrez and Zalal, as Glenbot said. He's, I think, taking another step in the right direction for his career. So the big question mark is the weigh-ins. Is he going to look good at 135, moving down 2 weight classes? Yet to be seen. But if he does, I'm definitely going to have some coin on Cunningham here. I think the toughness is going to take him a long way if he's able to stay at this weight class. And who knows? We'll see what happens in this fight. They'll probably try and prop him up a couple more fights and give him some favorable matchups if he wins.
Sorry, I forgot I had myself muted. I just wanted to highlight this because last time that this guy fought, I literally thought he was going to go to a split decision type scenario with Balgin Junalesi. You know, and like Balgin Junalesi is AJ Cunningham in terms of he's fighter anonymous. Like he's a generic fighter you insert into the equation, you know? And do I think that either one of these guys are remarkable? No. But the one thing I came away from that fight thinking was not like you is like a lock to have UFC success. I was like, man, he's got some grappling skill. He's got some technique, but he's never landed more than 47 significant strikes. That's not a guy that you want to make minus 700 in a UFC fight unless he's a guarantee to out-grapple everybody that he fights. And honestly, we just haven't even seen that against road to UFC level competition. So, yeah, not a sure thing. And he's being priced very prohibitively. So I just wanted to point that out against some random guy from road to UFC. I was like, I don't know. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another. Like, it seems like it could go either way. I feel the same way this time. And I'm not an AJ Cunningham guy, but after rewatching, I was like, I can't say that I'm gung-ho on the favorite. Next up, fellas, we got a heavyweight matchup. We got Waldo Cortez Acosta taking on Ryan Superman Spann, the former light heavyweight. And I'm team never Ryan Spann. You know, I would much rather have the under at plus 140 than Ryan Spann at plus 140 because I think that captures a lot of his win equity anyways. And then I don't have to cry if he goes out there and quits and goes for a takedown, gets elbowed against the cage or some other stupid outcome like he's done many times. For me, the one fight you got to watch is the Johnny Walker fight where he literally snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. Johnny Walker was as good as knocked out like 4 times in that fight. And he was like diving his way into the quit position while his coach is pleading with him. He's like, please stop shooting the takedowns. And he just wouldn't do it. So overall, can't trust the guy as far as you could throw him. I can't throw him very far. He's a big dude. But when you look at this matchup, I say to myself, is Waldo a guy that I want to go out there and trust with hard-earned dollars? Not really. You know, I said salsa your ass onto PFL when he was out there dancing with Arlovsky and not trying to beat him up. I was like, dude, this is a fist fight, right? Like, stop doing emotes like this is Fortnite. But overall, I do think Waldo a little bit more of a natural heavyweight, honestly. Like Spann, good at light heavyweight because he was able to impose his size, had a good guillotine. He could still leverage that in this fight. I think he's got the grappling edge, but I don't think he's got a great fight IQ. I don't think he's a very durable party. I don't think he's got a very strong will to win every time out. So for me, give me Waldo. Reluctantly, not going to have $1 on this fight unless I bet the under. And even that I don't like because Waldo is not a very, aggressive finisher. So I'm curious what you guys think about this one. Wiz, we'll kick it to you, man. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, let's talk about Spann first. Obviously, we know what Ryan Spann offers. He's going to come out there in round 1. He's going to try and take the guy's head off or pull his guillotine. And he's pretty good at doing it. But if it makes it outside of round 1, you kind of see this guy mentally collapse and finds a way to lose. Whether small favorite, big favorite, small underdog, big underdog, he's done it all. And then on the other side, we have someone in Waldo who obviously is going to be the larger fighter here, more proven heavyweight, definitely more proven cardio, so you can bet on his cardio. I know a lot of people laying the chalk on Waldo, but it's just I can't trust him either because this guy, all he looks to do is throw the jab or hit you with a 1-2 and repeat and repeat and repeat. The one thing that I like about Spann here is he's going to be able to land the leg kick. Waldo gets his leg chewed off in most of his fights and does not know how to check a kick. Rather than laying 170 on Waldo here, I would much rather lay 170 on fight doesn't go. Because I see this fight ending in a lot of different ways. Obviously, I can see Spann ending in round 1, whether sub or knockout. I could see Waldo winning by attritional finish later in round 2, round 3. I could see Spann giving up in round 2 and round 3, just flat out, just, after not finding success. A lot of people tend to think that gas tanks get better when you move up in a weight class. No, it does not, especially in heavyweight, because you're not just adding, 10 or 15 pounds to your body. You're adding more like 30 to 40 pounds. And Ryan Spann, as it is not really the most physically imposing specimen in the world. We saw his pictures today from Media Day. He just looks chubby. It doesn't really look like he's in shape for this fight. He just looked like he didn't cut weight and accepted that he'll have a little bit of a belly. And that just screams bad cardio to me. So I think if this fight makes it past round 1, maybe 1.5 rounds, that Ryan Spann's going to death gas and find a way out. So I really like the fight doesn't go at -170 here. But no other looks. I don't really have a clear winner. If I were to, throw a dart and, gun to my head, I would pick Waldo just because he has more proven process and more, I guess you don't have questions revolving his game. You know what he's going to bring to the table, and it's a pretty decent skill set at heavyweight. And we know that Ryan Spann is a quitter. So with all due respect, I think fight doesn't go, leaning towards the Waldo side.
Also, I think if you look back at the Thomas Peterson fight for Waldo in LFA, that's the kind of positive sign that you want to see, because he faced adversity in that fight. He had to fight hard for 15 minutes, and then he was able to gas that guy out and beat him up down the stretch and finish him. So I do think that is a clear path here. To get to the thesis of your argument, Wiz, Ryan Spann is a known self-immolator. Whether it's the first round, the second round, the third round, he could be having success and then start collapsing in on himself and lose a fight that was otherwise going well. So I just don't think he's a very trustworthy guy. Losing to the ghost of Anthony Smith, no disrespect, is not a good sign either. But he does have some plus tools. The submission used to be like 13-1, and now you're getting it at like 4-1 in a heavyweight contest. Disgusting, but it's definitely a path for him. So how do you feel about this one, James? Is there any value on this fight?
It's tough to say, man. I really do agree with you guys that Spann's probably 5-minute or bust. I mean, he just hasn't proven it to be wrong in many years. The last time he won a fight outside of round 1 was 5 years ago. It was 2020. It was COVID times. And
Smiling Sam.
Split decision. That was close, man. That was close.
Dude,
Split decision.
Dude, he got hurt multiple times. Sam Alvey with
Yeah,
that lead left hook.
Yeah, he could have lost that fight. He could have got knocked out in that fight. He got wobbled multiple times, like you said. And I think that was the fight which sent Sam Alvey on like a 9-fight loss, or it was one of the fights in between. And it was like the only fight in that 9-fight loss streak or whatever. It was crazy like that, where he was somewhat competitive. It was like literally the only one, which is very, very bad look. And obviously he's gone on a decent run after that, but the difference is that they was all in round 1, right? He went on a crazy streak of round 1 knockouts. Dominic Reyes was in there. Ion Cutelaba, he submitted in round 1. And then, every time the fight went outside of round 1 after that, Anthony Smith split decision. I'm going to give him some pass for that because I thought he could have won that fight. It was a split decision. So, at the end of the day, margins are slim in MMA, as we know. So we can clown him for never winning a fight, but it was a 50-50 fight. To be honest, a lot of people scored it for him. We could say he had a split decision win over Anthony Smith, but he didn't look good in that fight. So on the one hand, yes, he could have won it he could have won one fight out of round 1 within those 5 years, but he didn't look good in that fight regardless. He looked kind of shit in round 1. Nothing was going on. He hurt him badly in round 2. And then round 3, again, he just was gassed out. Even though Anthony Smith was on death's door doing absolutely nothing, he still didn't have the gas to push through. So, and then, I agree with Wiz. I don't think he's going to move up and have better cardio here. I don't see it. I really don't. If anything, it's going to be worse. It's probably just going to be the same. Some people just have bad cardio genetically, and it's never going to change. And a lot of people, it's not like a nice thing to think, right? Because you always want to say that you can overcome genetics and you can beat genetics. At the end of the day, some people are just never going to hit as hard as Francis Ngannou, no matter how big they are. That's genetics, right? And genetics is not just of how hard you hit. Genetics is there's many things that genetics plays a part in, how smart you are. Your IQ is just never going to go past a certain ranking based on genetics, right? And that's the same with cardio. I think, he can work on his cardio all he wants. He may always be a 5-minute fighter. And I tend to believe that that is the case. He's never proven otherwise. I don't see why a random move to heavyweight would do that. I'll eat my words if I'm wrong. I'm very confident I won't be wrong, meaning that he needs to beat Waldo in 5 minutes. If he doesn't beat Waldo inside the first 5 minutes, he's probably going to lose the fight. Now, I will say that Waldo is not very imposing in the fight, right? He's going to 29-28 decisions a lot with poor fighters, fighters that are low level, like Chase Sherman. I think it was Chase Sherman, or I mix up, those terrible heavyweights like Jared Vanderaa, Chase Sherman, and all those guys that we once.
They're all interchangeable.
They really are. I think of them as the same guy, but I'm pretty sure he had a 29-28 against Chase Sherman. Let me just check. Yeah, okay. It was a decision. I think it was 29-28. He also fought Jared Vanderaa. So, even Andrei Arlovski fight, the 29-28 decision, he was minus 700 there. Andrei Arlovski, I thought he was going to win that fight. I think it was like 2 rounds in, and I was like, oh my God, Andrei Arlovski is going to win this fight at plus 600, right? And obviously he didn't do it. And so Waldo is not the type of guy that's going to run away with a fight anyway. So, there may be scope for Spann to like eke out a round 2 or round 3 or dominantly win round 1 and then lose a split. So I'm not going to say it's impossible for him to win outside of round 1 here, as we've seen in the Anthony Smith fight. But yeah, I think Waldo's probably going to win. I think that if you want to play Ryan Spann, you probably should play the under 1.5 rounds, because he's also been finished under 1.5 rounds many, many times. So he might get finished under 1.5 again. And yeah, that's my prediction of the fight. I mean, it's hard to say, but I'd say Waldo gets a late TKO. There's no way I'd lay juice on Waldo, though. I will say that, because, I've shit on Spann a little bit, but I definitely want to say there's no way I'm laying juice on Waldo Cortez Acosta. Like I said, his margins are never that big outside of the Bresky fight. And we know what we think about Bresky. And so how are you going to lay minus 170 on someone who has the grappling disadvantage, someone like Ryan Spann who can knock anyone out, the veteran of the game who's been in there against much better fighters than Waldo has and has much better wins than Waldo does. So you can definitely never lay juice on this minus 170, honestly. It's a massive, massive pass for me in all realms.
All right, fellas. You ready for this? I went to go see how I've done capping Ryan Spann fights. And we've got a comfortable 5 units at a very solid 50+% ROI on our guy, Ryan Spann. I never bet on this guy once. I'm kidding, of course. I did have him by submission, but I've never bet on him on the money line. He's just a guy that I'm looking to fade. I'm looking to get on the other side. And even that Johnny Walker fight, where you could say, like, Liam, you made a shit-ass bet. And maybe I did. This guy's so bad, he cashed it for me anyway, right? Bogdan Guskov, everybody was ready to sell him down the river because he lost to Volkan Ozdemir. Make him a big plus money underdog against Ryan Spann. Guys, Ryan Spann has been an underdog in like almost every fight he's been in the last like 10 years. You can go back and look, like very occasionally it's not been true, like the Sam Alvey fight. But like this guy is basically a dog every time out. The books don't really think he's very good, and neither do I. So ultimately he's got some plus level skills. The only way I think to bet the guy is like submission, ITD, because I just can't trust him in any fight that gets extended. So for me, I'm looking towards either a Waldo angle or a fight not to go angle, but I'm never Spann. I'm team never Spann. No disrespect. I wish the guy nothing but the best, but that's just the way I see it. I can't trust a guy who doesn't want to fight. Like, I would fight harder for the coins than he would sometimes, like, and that can't be the case. So, and that's the way I see it. Next up, we got Kevin Vallejos taking on Sungwoo Choi. And guys, I'm going to give a 30-second synopsis for this fight. I don't think Sungwoo Choi wants to be here anymore. I also don't think he can take a good punch anymore. And I think the UFC set up this fight because of that. And I think Kevin Vallejos is going to go out there and absolutely starch him, probably in the first round, probably in really violent fashion. And then Sungwoo Choi is going to take the gloves off, call it a career. That's the way I see this one going. Kevin Vallejos is very active on social media. Like, my man, I tweeted about Gene Silva. His win is going to age like a fine wine over Vallejos. And then he quote tweets me and he's like, he don't want it back. Like, we'll do it back. Like, I was like, oh shit, this guy, he's ready to fucking get after it, man. He wants that Gene Silva smoke. He wants smoke with everybody. So for me, this kid's piss and vinegar, confidence out the wazoo, all aggression all the time. and Sung Woo Choi is getting dropped here, there, everywhere, every which way but loose, and the guy can't stand upright and take a punch. So Kevin Vallejos knockout, brutal fashion. That's the way I see it. We'll kick into lucrative. How do you see this one, my man? Any disagreements here?
Nah, no disagreements, man. I think Kevin Vallejo is going to run through him. I think left hook to the body, overhand right KO. And yeah, that's what I'm calling. Boys, there's a red moon tonight, right? In 20 minutes. It's 7:50 p.m. for me on a Friday in Auckland, New Zealand. So I'm going to go see my missus, do something romantic, go up to the top of the mountain and see it. I just wanted to pop in, say what's going on. I saw your DM. I wanted to come in. So blessings, everyone. My boy in the chat, MMA Triple J, is saying the boy Danny Hartwell fighting tomorrow. Danny Hartwell, my good friend from my gym, is fighting on Cage Warriors tomorrow. He's minus 200. He should be minus 400. I'm going to leave you with that free bet. But it's a disclaimer. That's my friend. So maybe don't play it. But you can get it on Bet Online for minus 200. And if you shop around, it's minus 160. So yeah, shout out, boys. I really appreciate you getting on. We'll definitely have to do something soon as well. Maybe come on my show or something. But yeah, all love, boys. Sorry I couldn't do it all. I didn't realize the time, but yeah.
Much love, bro. Much love.
Never a worry, my man. Appreciate you stopping by. What a great surprise for the people. And we'll see you again in the future, my man. Our paths will cross again soon. So we'll work something out. Thank you for the time, my brother. Peace, love, and shit in Greece. Until next time.
Good luck. Good luck, everyone in the chat. Let's go.
Thanks, man. You too. All right, Wiz, back at it. The power panel, the two-man power trip. We're here and we're ready to rumble. What do you think about this fight? Is Sung Woo Choi the dog of the week, or is Kevin Vallejos about to put him on a poster?
Absolutely not. There's just one thing that bugs me about this fight. I'm not going to really touch on it anymore. You guys kind of summed it up pretty well. He's going to knock him out, in my opinion. But I just hate with a passion seeing debutantes making all this noise on social media. Who was it last week? Myron Santos. Every freaking day, it would seem like every freaking hour, he was tweeting, I can't wait till my fight. I am going to win my fight. I can't wait. And Vallejos is doing the same exact thing. Now, let's give some credit. They're fighting two completely different fighters in terms of durability and in terms of aggressiveness. But there's a huge size disadvantage here. It's huge. We have to talk about it. This is 5'7" versus 6 foot and giving up about 6 inches of reach. This is MMA at the end of the day. Do not put all your eggs in the Kevin Vallejos KO train. Because just what if Sung Woo Choi pulls a Yunesi Dubin and lands one on the chin clean? We don't know. I understand he went 3 rounds with Gene Silva, who no one has really been able to keep up with lately. But you just never know. It's MMA. I've seen crazier things happen. Proceed with caution. Obviously, there's no hot take here. I think Vallejos is going to be able to knock him out clean. Sung Woo Choi's durability is out the window. I'm very surprised that Jarno Aarons didn't finish him, but, Sung Woo Choi at a point when he was coming into the UFC, I thought very highly of him until the durability got cracked. So take it with a grain of salt. I think it's Vallejos KO pretty confidently. Would not be surprised if something lands in that first round and changes tides.
Yeah, man. I'm looking back to see what I have in terms of a betting history on Sung Woo Choi. And, I bet him very small against Steve Garcia. And after that fight, I was like, yeah, this guy's durability is completely shot. I know Steve hits hard, but he was not able to take any clean shots in that fight. And it was something where once you see it twice, you're like, okay, I really can't trust it. The chin is a finicky thing. I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1. It's just like, I can't ever trust it again personally. So, when you talk about long-term pricing dynamics, like I'm always the guy who's saying like plus 325 and above, like it's an MMA fight. Like the guy could go out there and tear his ACL just like stepping into the octagon. I'm not trying to make light of that. It's just the reality of the fight business, right? So you need things to go right for you on fight night. You want to not be feeling sick. You want to not be injured, like all these things. You need them to go right. But ultimately, I just don't. I wouldn't play Sung Woo Choi here. You know, I think it's a dog or pass situation. It's a pass situation. It's a prop situation in my view, or pass. So prop on the favorite or pass. I think Vallejos finishes him. And I don't think it's a submission. You know, I think that it's probably a knockout. It's probably in the first round. Maybe it's in the first 2 rounds, but ultimately, I just don't think Choi could take the shots. If you were to live into Choi after, you know, seeing him like start initiating some wrestling and having success, I don't hate that idea. Again, like if you were to say like pre-fight money line side that like has to be value long term, like again, Choi has a lot of UFC experience. He does have good fights on his resume, all these things, but like just the way these two match up, I don't think the explosivity is the same. And I don't think that the will to win and the confidence is the same at all. I think the confidence is completely gone for Sung Woo Choi. And that's the ultimate factor I'm looking at here. So shout out to Monotone says Kevin Vallejos KO 1-2 plus 100 FanDuel. I don't mind that at all. You bet 1 unit on that. I think you win 1 unit back. So
I love it.
That's the way I see it, man. All right. Next up, we've got DR Nurgozai taking on Brandison Ribeiro. And I have been a Brandison Ribeiro truther, right? I said he was going to submit Magomed Gadzhiesulov with a guillotine, and Wizz asked me if I wanted to fucking puke in my hands when he had him in a guillotine choke and blew it like an idiot. I couldn't believe it, dude. That was a ridiculous non-stoppage. I was like, he had everything he could have possibly wanted and blew it all. So I wanted to just say shout out to Brandison Ribeiro, who I literally called to a letter how that fight was going to go until he blew it. And I was like, dude, I can't believe you sold me like that. But in any case, Gadzhiesulov was then exposed 1 fight later. I said the guy was a complete fraud. Brandison Ribeiro is not good, but he is a killer be killed guy that will go out on his shield attempting offense in the first round. And like the one thing you need in order to win a fight is offense. You don't need to have good defense to win a fight. But that also means you're going to take a lot of risks. You're going to have 7 losses and you're going to get starched in those losses where you're out there taking huge risks and putting your chin on the line and getting in the pocket with these big dudes at 205. And ultimately, I don't think Brandison Ribeiro is very good, but Bruno Lopes is a stiff, awkward guy who is very good at fighting in terms of all-around skills, but the fight starts on the feet with 2 guys swinging when they're both fresh, and Brandison Ribeiro is better at that. And he could be better than DR at that, honestly. Like, he's very good at 2 minutes and 30 seconds of explosive fighting with no regard for health or safety in the middle. But his defense is no good. His chin is no good. His process is no good. And his IQ is no good. His grappling sucks because he went out there and absolutely blew it against a guy who's a complete fugazi. I was like, all right, I look at DR and he's a prospect for me, the real kind. Right? Where Brandison Ribeiro, he's just UFC cannon fodder. They're going to send him out there, find out if you're real or not, get him into a car crash. Like, you know, maybe somebody dies on the beginning of a pay-per-view. That's what they're sending him out there for. Car crashes, entertainment. They're not promoting this guy towards a title opportunity at some point in the future. You know what I'm saying? So I think Brandson is always live for the early KO, for the early finish. His cardio sucks. His will to win is spotty at best. He just has some piss and vinegar for about 5 minutes. And I think DR is a much more process-based fighter. I think that he's a guy that can go out there, initiate wrestling, and get on top of Brandison and have success on top if he wants to. But ultimately, I think he's probably just going to knock him out when Brandison gets tired, like he predictably does in the 2nd and the 3rd round. So for me, I think DR wins the fight. I don't feel compelled to go bet the big price. It's 2 big guys swinging. I've talked about before Brandson being the kind of guy you want to bet as an underdog, not as a favorite. And, he's back in that opportunity again. I just think in this fight, unless he lands the kill shot in the first round, I think he's going to get fucked up. So give me DR. I think he's going to finish him. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, spot on there. DR has faced some really good names in his career, to be honest. In his pro career, he's had some very good experience compared to Ribeiro, who we kind of know what we're getting out of Ribeiro here with just his overall game. Sure, he has like measurable advantages here in the reach, but it's just you see it coming from a mile away. It's not like one of those guys that wings bombs and catches people with them. You see this guy throwing from his hip basically, and every single punch is a windup, and it's just very telegraphed. That's why he hasn't really found too much success when it comes to the knockouts. At least at the UFC level, he's landing some shots and he's taking people to decision, but he himself is gassing out. This is his first, I'd say, real test, in my opinion, and I think DR is going to be able to get him out of there. So yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't want to really say too much more there. I don't have the strongest opinion on the fight in regards to like Ribeiro potentially being a live dog. I just don't see it happening. So I think DR is a safe. I'm not gonna say safe, but a solid parlay piece.
Yeah, I always think like inherent volatility at light heavyweight, but I do think DR should win this fight more often than not. You know, like I think it's probably accurate pricing, and I know I normally I'm the one saying like, hey, it's got to be dog or pass. That I just think it's probably accurate in this spot. Again, I wouldn't click a -280 at light heavyweight unless I know that the other guy is completely useless, and Brenson is not that. Right. The one thing I would want to make sure is that the guy isn't dangerous. Brenson is dangerous. He's just no good at anything and kind of an idiot. So that ultimately that's my assessment of him as a fighter. He can go out there and swing and kill somebody, but can he like put together combinations or like do smart things in sequence? Like not really. So gotta measure your expectations there. Next up, we got Damone Blackshear taking on Cody Gibson at 135 pounds, a grappler's delight. Wiz, how do you feel about this one, my brother? We'll let you lead us off.
Yeah, I think Damone Blackshear is gonna sub Cody Gibson here. Cody Gibson been subbed multiple times, and Damone Blackshear is a very crafty jiu-jitsu artist. Gibson, you know, we know what he brings to the table. He usually is the longer fighter and the taller fighter in the cage. Won't be this time. It's gonna be pretty much same exact measurables for both fighters. Sure, a lot of people are discrediting Damone over the loss against Montel, and these are just two different guys. Montel Jackson is, you know, once considered a prospect, still is considered a prospect to potentially climb up into the top 5, maybe even challenge at some point. I don't think that's going to happen, but definitely could be a top 10, a top 5 guy. And Damone Blackshear, I mean, for lack of better words, gassed out a little bit in that fight too. Got hit with some big shots. And Cody Gibson, I don't think he's going to be able to really deter Damone from walking forward. He's not known for his power and doesn't have that pressure style that Montel has. I think in the grappling, Damone's going to just be a level higher than Cody here. And at some point, I think he will find the submission finish. So I think it's Damone and Damone by sub.
All right. I have to take this one a little bit deeper, to tell you the truth, because like I feel like I get Cody Gibson's fights wrong frequently. And like I've always thought that the guy wasn't that good, but I gotta just say, like, he's a tough guy. He's a guy that seems to have gotten like better over time. Like rarely you say like a 37-year-old is presenting their career best product. I think of like an Angela Hill and some of these people that have like just they got the skills to like just start competing at a higher level later than most people do, later in their athletic prime. And that's why fighting is a unique sport. You know, it's like where experience meets physicality. That's kind of what you need. And I don't think Cody Gibson's physicality has failed him yet. I don't think his cardio is great, but honestly, like I don't think it's going to be bully ball for Damone Blackshear physically. Where I do think that Damone Blackshear is the more technical guy, I would say, in some of those grappling exchanges. I don't know that it's a massive margin. Like Gibson's a pretty decent grappler in his own right. Maybe if he gets tired, I think that would be where his vulnerabilities would be in the grappling. Like, I don't think you're going to sub Cody Gibson in the first round personally at this stage of his career. Like, you know, I do think a guy like my boy, the Canadian alpha, Chad and Hellinger, you know, when you look at his game, like he's got a great guillotine. He threatened Muin Gafurov with that technique. Like he's got some skills, and he kind of just got bully balled by Cody Gibson, right? Like the size was a factor. The physicality was a factor. Gibson's done that now to a couple guys that are a little bit undersized. You look back at the Katona fight, and he lost that one. He had some moments of success there. But the one thing I would say is like Brad Katona is a guy I've always hated on. And then he earned my respect against John Matsumoto. Like, he was very close to winning that fight. It was a very nip-tuck win for John Matsumoto. That's why I bet Rob Font. And even that was a nip-tuck win for Rob Font. But you just look back, it's like, it was very close, right? It's very, very close fight. And, I look at Cody Gibson going out there and going to war with Katona. That's another like proven UFC vet, a guy that wins a lot of his fights. I favored Damon Blackshear, but again, like the price surprised me here. I gotta say, like I thought, like I like Damon to win this one, but I didn't think it was going to be a blowout like this. And one of these guys has been stopped with strikes. One of them hasn't. Cody Gibson never stopped with strikes. Does have a stoppage with strikes in the UFC. The other thing I would say is, guys, a different referee stops that fight with Damon Blackshear and Yusuf Zalal. Damon was tough, man. He stayed in there, found a way to hang on, but I think he absorbed 66 or something significant strikes in like the third round. Like he just got his ass whooped from pillar to post. He got hurt in that round, and he was tired. He was on death's door in terms of his cardio. So he found a way to just like cling on to the guy, not get finished. Like, respect, like tough bastard. But it went to a draw because he got 10-8'd in that third round. And that for me is the kind of thing where I'm like, at the time, Yusuf Zalal would kind of like give away rounds and like just like hope that he was going to hurt you or like find a big moment and stuff. And I think that if they ran that fight back, like I got Yusuf Zalal, just like full style. I think he wins that. So that was at 135 too. He like cut down the weight, right? Where Zalal is like clearly better suited at 145. But I just think like I don't know that I see this as like a minus 400. Like, again, I would have thought if you told me minus 250, I'd be like, okay, like I could see the 70, 7 out of 10 times, like, okay. But I don't see Cody Gibson as like a complete pushover. He goes out there and fights pretty hard with everybody. I think he's probably a little more likely to slow down, but again, I have evidence of Blackshear slowing down in some of these 3-round fights as well. I think he's lost to the better quality competition. That's the one thing that, to me, like, you lose to Farid, I'm like, no skin off your nose. Like, Farid, guys are going to lose to Farid. It's like, that's the way it's going to be. But I think that some of those other fights are the ones where I'm like, the Montel fight, losing to Montel, no problem. The insta-kill look, I didn't love, because I do think the other thing about Cody Gibson, he's kind of a spaz, but, like, he does have some power in his hands. Like, he will come out there and throw hard. He's got 7-0 career record to the knockout. So I don't think Cody Gibson's like a complete pushover, but I don't trust his cardio either. So for me, Blackshear's the pick, but very price prohibitive in my view. Anything you want to add there, my brother?
No, I just think it might be a levels fight. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, and the age, the level of skill, I kind of see where you're going. At 135 as well, sometimes those age gaps can be a little bit more pronounced.
Yep.
Hell yeah. Shout out to our guy Jewish Better in the chat. Says high kick, body kick, right hand, knee. I can see it all. Ground and pound. Good luck though, bro. Damon is not ground and pounding Gibson. Interesting. Okay. I'll have to check back in with the chat for the next one, but we got another main card fight. It's going down in the lightweight division. Alexander, the Great Ape Hernandez, taking on Kurt Holobaugh. And this is not a fight that I want to have betting action on, man. But if you ask me my prediction, my analysis, like pre-tape, pre-anything, I think Alexander Hernandez is going to knock Kurt Holobaugh the fuck out. And the reason I say that is not because Kurt's not a tough guy or a good fighter. I just think that the speed, the athleticism, like the power, I like those things for Hernandez against a guy like Kurt, and I think Kurt against Ogden, like Ogden is a tricky guy, but like physically he looked like a noodle. Like he was just getting fucking big brothered by Trey Ogden, like all over the place. And it's not a good look for me. Like I do think Trey Ogden's a strong guy. He's a physical guy. He's not a pushover, but like to just get completely like owned by him, every physical exchange you have, it showed his age for me. Kurt Holobaugh, not a guy that normally, and if he was 33, it's just going to get completely physically audited like that. And Alexander Hernandez, despite all of his flaws, despite all the many things that have gone wrong in his career, he's 32. He still has the body of an Adonis, and like he's actually fought for 15 minutes and gone out there and looked a little bit better than he did earlier on in his career. So I feel like Hernandez still has some sketchy moments, still has some vulnerabilities. Like, not a guy that I'm in love with his game at all. But if Jim Miller's not guard subbing him, like, is Kurt Hollabaugh going to fucking triangle him for bottom or something? Like, personally, I don't see it. So I think if Alex wants takedowns, he gets takedowns. I think if he throws hands with him on the feet, he's going to fucking knock him the fuck out. So it's just ultimately the way I see it, man. I like Hernandez here to win the fight. I don't trust Hernandez as far as I could throw him, and he's a 155 pounder. I feel like I have a chance there. So, I've been playing, but, it's just looking like this is the kind of fight where I'm going to be watching it from the sideline. And, maybe if anything, again, like a violence kind of play is something I could see. But Hernandez in this portion of his career has been a lot more like focus on preserving some cardio. Don't overexert yourself, like hurt the guy, but don't like empty the clip. And, Hollabaugh's a tough son of a bitch, right? So if you're not going to go out there and make an attempt to put him away, like he'll hang on for the full 15. So for me, it just seems like Hernandez is going to win the fight, but he's not the kind of guy you want to trust when he's favored to win. So how do you feel about this one, Wiz?
At first glance, when I was looking at this fight, I told myself, holla dog. But then I just can't get to a bet on either side here. Obviously, dog or pass, but pass is the lean. I think the toughness on the Hollabaugh side might frustrate Hernandez, and Hernandez is just one of those fighters that's very streaky. He either shows up and has good cardio, moves his head, is able to outbox his opposition, but sometimes he just goes in there and he gets hit a lot and he gets hurt and dropped and just looks like a shell of himself. So you just don't know what to expect. On the other hand, Hollabaugh, we know, is a guy that's getting up there in age at 38, gets taken down at will almost. I'm not going to fault him too much for that Trey Ogden performance, because Trey Ogden, for what it's worth at the time, we considered Trey Ogden to be a decently smart fighter who knows how to game plan to win with the path of least resistance, and that's the exact path he took against Hollabaugh. And I was on Ogden in that fight, pretty big. Will Alexander Hernandez wrestle here? I don't really think so. On the feet, Hollabaugh could land. I do see him pressuring Hernandez if he starts to gas towards the mid to end of second round and third round. And he can make this fight really close. And I would not want to be holding a minus 190 to minus 210 ticket on Alexander Hernandez in that case. So I'm staying away from this fight with a 10-foot pole, dog or pass. But yeah, Kurt decision, as Glenbot's saying, is probably the only way I would even think of playing this fight, or at least fight ends or not fight ends, but points, but fight goes a distance. But yeah, passing. I don't really have a passionate take here. Not a fan of Hernandez.
I respect that take, man. I'm not a huge Hernandez guy either. Since that Cerrone beef back in the day, but he's funny enough, man. He's given some funny press conference moments, stuff like that. Like, I don't hate Hernandez. I think he's a fine enough guy, and 32 years of age, could still make some marginal improvements. But do I think he's going to be a better product fight over fight? Not really. I think he's kind of where he's at. And he's got some vulnerabilities. He's got some assets. I just think Hollabaugh, his vulnerabilities are glaring at this point in his career. And he's a guy that if you just had to describe his UFC career, he struggled to get wins. Throughout his career, even at the best of times, fought tough guys. You can make the justifications, but it's just at a certain point, you are what your record says you are, which is a guy that doesn't win that many UFC fights. And Alexander Hernandez has won a bunch of UFC fights by hook or by crook. So it just seems to me like a fight where I lean towards Hernandez and don't trust him enough to bet him. Next up, my man, we are on the co-main event of the evening. And Wiz, I must admit to you, I've kind of gone through different stages on this fight. My first instinct, I was like, easy dose is going to embarrass this guy. Just because I like his grappling. I like his level of competition throughout his UFC career. He's literally knocked out UFC champions. Easy dose, as proven as it gets. But then I just thought about okay, what are some of the fights that have given him problems, right? Because I always try and cap based on who have you lost to before? Could it be replicated here? That's like one thing I think about. And the thing about, who Easy has lost to, guys that can box, guys that can throw some straight shots at him, guys that can, hit him with some power on the feet and use some length. And like the Leech, right? Perfect example, a guy that kind of beat his ass and, just mostly boxed him up, kept it pretty fundamental, pressured him backwards. Obviously, it was over in China. Maybe somebody got to him in the dressing room, don't throw any offense. Maybe that's it. But I just think like he's a guy that we've seen. He could be in neutralizing situations, right? He can kind of let some clock fly by and not do as much as you hope for. And the moments are huge, but I had him against Renat, and it's nice to get your money back, right, on a great read, but it's even better when you cash the ticket. And the finishing instincts weren't perfect there. The fight, like he largely let it slip through his fingers. I thought Renat was there to be hurt all day. His body is there to be hit all day. And Easy did a good job, but not a great job, right? And that just frustrated me. He's a guy that I think at 33 years of age, he would have finished Renat and fucking done a spinning backflip off of his body. But you look at where he's at now, and he's just a touch behind that. And even some of the fights where he won, you just saw the vulnerabilities in a guy that I love and respect and always have, right? I bet 4.3 units against Benoit Saint-Denis, a guy that made me a shit ton of money ever since then, right? But if you look back, like, why? It's because Easy was a huge step up in competition. He's a massive guy. He's a real welterweight. Like, I was like, no, none of this is going to work out. Guys, you can go back and watch. Easy Dose almost killed him, right? The referee should have stopped the fight, didn't. But then he was on death's door. He was exhausted. BSD, you saw that he was a soldier because my man starts coming back after getting beat within an inch of his life. He was like, all right, now it's your turn, buddy. Here, hold some of these. I was blown away by what I saw. But you saw Easy Dose tire out in that one. How about against Luigi fucking Vendramini when he gets hit cleanly, where he's fucking getting in awkward grappling situations with a guy half his size on short notice? Like, not great. Not great, Chief. So I just look at Easy Dose and I say, like, so much talent, so much skill, so much ability, but starting to get up there in age. And Chitty, not a young man, not a spring chicken, got cigarette cardio. I don't trust him in a second round, but he's gone these 3 rounds the last couple of times against limited opposition, guys that couldn't really hurt him. So I think he's been skating on that. But like at the end of the day, it's like 2 guys throwing punches and kicks at each other's head, neck, and chest, and they're both ancient for the division. So it's like if somebody gets hit on the chin, they're probably going to die. And Chitty's huge, and he's a plus 175 underdog. And it's like they're probably just going to exchange and have a mad fight. So it's like grappling upside, yeah, Easy Dose for me. But like, if they get hurt before they grapple or if they get tired before they grapple, crapshoot, like Easy Dose again. I'd make him like a slight favorite there, like, 60%, not 65, 70%. It's just the God's honest truth. So for me, even as a huge Easy Dose fan, can't get behind the price. Like I expected to be on Easy Dose as a dog in this fight. Like that was where I expected to be. I was like, fucking, they're going to give me Easy Dose plus 150. He's going to find a way to rally against this guy in round 2 and beat him. But it's like, no, I'm being asked to pay for the privilege of betting the guy who's half the size of Chitty. When Chitty's going to start hot, his best round's going to be the first round. It's like, I don't like any of that personally. So that's the way I see this fight. And guys, if we didn't have another damn guest for you, what a show we have put together today. We've been rotating in. Great surprise guests. They're surprising me too. We had a guy from the chat say, hey, draft me in, put me in, coach. You're in. The Jewish Bettor, my friend and yours, back on the program. How are you, my brother? And what do you got to say about the co-main event of the evening?
Yeah, I hope my audio is good. You might have to mute your mic, but the only reason I'm up is I'm watching this blood moon right now. So if you get the chance to go outside, go ahead and look at the moon right now. It's completely a complete eclipse. It's one of the coolest things I ever seen. So I'm gonna try and make this one nice and quick. Yeah, everybody got to get up now. Yeah, all right. So we'll take a break. I knew that was gonna happen. I knew it. I know, bro. I know.
That's pretty wild.
You saw it, bro?
Oh yeah,
I'm not
pause for the
tripping.
cause. We're back.
I'm not tripping. All right, cool.
No,
Just had to
sir.
make sure.
Dude, James had to bounce before because he was going to watch with his lady. So yes, you're on the money.
Oh, that's pretty cool. He knew it was up too. All right, awesome. Yeah, dude, I love this fight though, and there's a reason I wanted to come in here and to talk about this one because I just think you got two guys that are gonna come in here and probably slug it out. Chitty, I don't think he's a terrible range striker, but if we're gonna talk about the range striking, I think Zaleski's a little bit crisper. I know he's getting up there in age, but I still think he's got speed. I think that body kicks are very bad. Like that one that he hit Renat with would fool the many of men. So let's give Renat a little credit there because that was a nasty one. Um, in the clinch, I favor Chidi and Jaquani, obviously. I just think that's where he's the strongest. He's got good Muay Thai. He will land nasty knees, good elbows. So I like him there. Cardio, I lean Zaleski. Durability is, a bit iffy. We've seen Zaleski put out before by we've seen Zaleski put out before by what's his name, Li Jing Liang. We've seen, in Jaquani finish in a myriad of ways. I mean, talking about a ground and pound knockout in round one by Mikhail Jacek is a terrible look for me. That's one of those things where, if you could lose like that to that man, I think you could lose to Zaleski in a myriad of ways. The grappling edge, I lean towards Zaleski. I don't think he's a D1 wrestler, but he had Randy Brown in some legitimate positions where there was a threat of a submission. As well as Renat, he had him in some deep attempts there as well. So that's something I just want to note. That being said, I think this got it, but from a money line standpoint, I think it's dog or pass. I think Chitty's live to knock him out early. We see Zaleski getting up past that 38 years old mark. As you said, a 155 fighter in Benoit Saint Denis was able to hurt him. Now you got a guy in Chitty who's really powerful for the weight class at 170. So that's like something I would be worried about. I could see Chitty knocking him out. But the lean I got, and it's similar to last week. And my man Liam, you are so right. I am not going to make the same mistake twice because I like the Zaleski 2-3 sub here. I think he could get it done. I think this is a similar situation to Bahamondes and Jalen Turner, where we saw, Jalen Turner got subbed in the first round. I don't think Njokwani's as much of a quitter, but we've seen him really start to fade in some of these fights. And I think if Zaleski starts to put the pressure on him and land some big shots on him, I don't hate the end sub here, and I like the Zaleski Dos Santos sub straight up at 10-1.
Nice. It's even as high as 11-1. You had Daz asking about that in the chat. I also wanted to shout out Ulysses says Chitty loves the clinch. Absolutely he does, and he's got insane legs dexterity. I wanted to just point that out. If you guys have ever seen, he can like head kick people from standing like an inch away from them. Despite being as tall as he is, he's got crazy abilities, but the cigarette cardio, my brother, it's hard to avoid, and that guy's got it, always has. So what do you think about this one, Wiz?
I think this line should be flipped. Could be a hot take. I think this line should really be flipped.
I like it.
Man, the size difference alone is what's going to favor Chitty here. I think it's Usilis kind of harping off of that. The clinch is where we've seen Chitty go to in the past couple of fights, and if he puts Eliseo in the clinch here, he's just going to be able to win minutes similar to how he was winning minutes in his last two. He's going to be able to keep this guy against the cage, and he's going to be able to hit him with knees and hit him with elbows over and over again until they get split up, and then he's going to do it again and again. I think in the striking, it's close, but the measurables is what's going to make it favor Chitty here. Chitty's Muay Thai striking is very underrated in my opinion, and he's a guy that I like to study a lot just to improve my own game because we have similar builds. We're both welterweights, we're both 6'3", and we both have that reach. And I like to utilize a lot of his game, and that's why I'm fairly confident with this take. Sure, he can get his lights put out. He has not the best cardio, I will admit. But to be honest, I do think that he should be the favorite here. I think he should be closer to the -130 to -140 range. So I'm not saying it's a huge flip, but I do think he is a deserved favorite here. If you wanted to to risk off, I would say go with the fight doesn't go to distance at -160. That's also a great look. I'm going to be on both. So for
My
me,
man.
I really
I was
like
going to bring that
this.
up. Sharp point.
I really like this spot. This is, man, I really love Chitty in this spot a lot. I know I've said it many times, but it's just I'm very passionate about this take. Load up the shotgun.
No,
We're
I
going bang,
like
bang,
it.
Chitty, bang.
I like it, man. We haven't had like a ton of like this is take this one to the bank type reads, but as far as I'm concerned, like I as a huge Zaleski fan, I would still rather have the fight not to go at -160 than Zaleski at the same price. Like just like for me that feels clear. Like I'd just much rather steer into volatility given his recent fights because like he's basically only good to win like one big exchange in a lot of these fights lately anyway, and like. If he parlays that into a finish, great. If he doesn't, like he might just be in cardiac arrest. And he's a tough guy, but I think that ultimately, like Chitty's offense is good. That's never been the problem. It's just that defensively, cardiovascularly, didn't always have it when he needed it. So, all right, fellas. With that being said, we can move on to the one and the only, the main event of the evening. We got Marvin Vettori taking on Roman Dolidze. And this should be a absolute banger of a rematch. Let me make sure that we are zoomed properly. Hopefully everybody can see this okay on the screen. Bang. And guys, this is a fight where last time out, Roman Dolidze, much bigger underdog. And I thought he was going to win that fight. I thought he did win that fight. Between you and me, like I thought he edged that fight out. I thought he got rounds 1 and 3. Judges didn't see it the same way, right? They give it to Marvin Vettori. I didn't think Marvin even thought he won the fight, but God bless him for it. He, hit the paper spends the same, right? So the man went out there, cashed that winner's check, right? 2 checks for Marvin. And, then he goes out there, takes an absolute shellacking of the century from Jared Cannonier. He landed a couple decent shots early and then basically was a punching bag for 4 rounds. And when you look at where is Marvin Vettori right now, he's been extremely inactive. The last thing that we saw from Marvin Vettori is him getting into an altercation while clearly intoxicated at a casino with another UFC fighter. Horrible look for the company, everybody involved. Brendan Allen's gone on a shit run since. Okay, interesting. Then they say, let's rebook him against the guy that he just beat. So his most recent win. That's a two-way street, right? Because you could make the argument, hey, this is a guy he's beaten. He can go out there and beat him again. Or you could say, he didn't even fucking beat this guy last time. Let's go out there and get this guy out of the rankings once and for all. Give him 5 rounds to go hurt him. Because the other thing you go back and look at, you guys could talk about the strike total. If you guys go back and look at the strike total, Marvin was up on the strike. All he did was low kick. You just go back and look like that makes up for the difference between them in strikes. It's the low kicking of Marvin Vettori, who did damaging shots to the head of their opponent. Like, it was like a 50-50 ball on who was landing, and the guy who was doing the damage was Roman Dolidze, in my humble opinion. And the guy who was taking the shots better was Roman Dolidze, in my humble opinion. So I liked the pressure. I liked what he was bringing to the table. He got absolutely like knocked unconscious by Imavov and fought the rest of 4 rounds. Like this guy, Roman Dolidze, insanely tough, very, very durable. And I'm hearing people say, guys that I truly respect their opinion, say that they think Marvin Vettori has grappling upside this week. And I couldn't fucking disagree more thoroughly. Like, me, and I'll come here and own my shit if I'm wrong, right? I'll say, hey, mea culpa, I was wrong. I'm a fucking idiot. I truly don't understand that take at all. I think that Roman Dolidze, more proven grappler, more dynamic, more dangerous submissions. Like, let's go back and look at Roman Dolidze's run in the UFC and talk about the fact he's got no submission wins. But Jack Hermanson, he finished with a calf slicer and TKO from ground and pound. Phil Hawes, he ripped his knee apart, let go like a gentleman, looked at the referee. Referee's like, no, you got to kill him. He's like, okay, fine. Stood up and then punched his dead carcass. Like, this guy has been put in some violent situations needlessly. Like, he's out there submitting guys and then still has to violently put them away. And he's about that life. No problem for him. So that's what he's been doing. But then you look at the Kevin Holland fight. Guys, I hate to give you the spoiler alerts. If that fight goes 15 minutes, there's going to be a submission attempt from Roman Dolidze somewhere along the way. And Kevin Holland, if it's any indication what happened against Rene de Ridder, he's not really about that life when it gets very hard and difficult in those grappling exchanges. Like, you don't really want to be there. So where RDR settles out is yet to be seen. He's submitted black belt. He's done a great job. No skin off his nose there. But what did Roman Dolidze show us so far in the UFC? He can get takedowns. He can go out there and hurt people on the feet. He's got better submission attempts in terms of like who's been putting guys through more pain, avarice, and risk of losing fights with their submission attempts in the last 5 years, Roman Dolidze or Marvin Vettori. Like Marvin Vettori, when he tried to grapple Izzy, failed in embarrassing ways. Like falling over the top, looking like a spaz, like couldn't lock his hands, couldn't solidify a single position of advantage. And you meanwhile look at Roman Dolidze and against black belts, against guys that pride themselves, like grappling is my art. It's my best tool. He's out there submitting those guys and putting them through the paces. So again, I know no formal submissions on the record, but I hope you guys understand my point. He has them in submission criteria. If he doesn't ground and pound them out, he's still going to finish the fight, right? He could have just went for the neck, right? He could have had a calf slicer and a rear naked choke at the same time. So as far as I'm concerned, the more dangerous and thoughtful ground player is Roman Dolidze. The guy who won the first fight is Roman Dolidze. The guy who's been more active and aggressive is Roman Dolidze, and he's the underdog. Give me the underdog, Roman Dolidze. That's the way I see it. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I sent you something in the private chat that I want you to pull up in a little bit, This is Marvin Vettori is a fighter I'm very familiar with for a very specific reason. If we look back to May of 2022, I was helping Marvin prep for Robert Whittaker. And obviously the first fight didn't happen. They ended up rebooking for September. Didn't train with him in the lead up to that camp. But very familiar with Marvin, very familiar with his game and the people that are around him. I question the motivation here. This is back when he was training at King's MMA, when he was, on the rise. And the one thing about Marvin is he's very hard-headed, and that's why he's bounced around from gym to gym. People just don't like to really train with him. They love his attitude in the beginning, and then once things start to become sour, some drama gets involved, he fades. He goes away, and he flees to either back to Italy for a couple months and then somewhere else. Marvin, in this fight, I really think he's drawing dead. I think this is all Roman Dolidze's. I feel like it's his fight to lose, with lack of better words. Dolidze is going to have the grappling advantage here. I do think he's going to have the striking advantage here. The one thing that we can say about Marvin is that he's a very tough fighter. And this dude will walk forward. He will take every single punch and will continue to walk forward, as we've seen throughout his whole career. So we got to attribute the toughness to something. But you got to question, 2 years removed from the Cannonier fight, he had, his last appearance in the combat sports world was against Tarek Suleiman in a grappling tournament. We just don't know where this guy is at in terms of cardio, in terms of conditioning, in terms of just overall his headspace. So for me, I agree, Liam. I think this is Roman Dolidze. I think the line should be flipped and some. I think Dolidze submits him here.
There you have it, my man. I could not believe I was seeing the sub-only market was like -125 Marvin or something, like -105 Dolidze. I was like, really? Very interesting to me. All news to me, man. Like, again, no disrespect. Like, I have nothing but respect for, Marvin in terms of he's been around the UFC a long time. He's had a lot of fights. You mentioned it. Like, questioning his toughness would be pretty ridiculous. Like, the guy's willing to take any punch, but there's a difference between toughness and a willingness or ability to absorb damage and like a willingness to take risks. Like, some guys are willing to risk getting knocked out in order to win the fight. And I instead believe that Marvin has good self-preservation instincts, as well as a very tough chin. And like, he's got a brick for a head and he's a tough bastard. Like, he's not going to give it up easy. But at the end of the day, like, I think that Marvin has been fortunate to not get finished in some of these fights, like that last one, most especially the Cannonier fight. But also, I think against Israel Adesanya, my personal opinion is that Marvin kind of decided like, hey, I'm not going to win this one, but You know, I'm going to survive till the end of the 25 and claim it's a robbery at the end and just move on with my life. And, you know, he at the end, after doing nothing for 5 rounds, right? And he had said in the lead up, he's like, I'll do anything, whatever it takes to become a champion. He does nothing with no disrespect. He did nothing. And just like watch the opportunity slip through his fingers. And then at the end, he's like putting his hands up and he's like looking around like, I can't believe it. They didn't give me the decision. He didn't do a fucking thing offensive the whole night. And I was just like, huh, you know, like kind of disappointed because it was a second crack, right? And like what it showed me was he wasn't willing to take that risk of getting knocked out to win the title. You know, he was content to lose at the end of the day. And I can't get behind that. You know, I think Roman Dolidze against Imavov, he was willing to get knocked out and he tried to win by any means necessary, and he just didn't have it on the night, right? Better guy won the fight. If you give me a Imavov against Marvin Vettori, I don't know that works out well for Marvin either. I hate to tell you guys, I think that would be really, really bad for Marvin. So ultimately, I think Marvin is a cardio and durability merchant that his skills in MMA have never blown me away. I think he's a jack of all trades, a master of nothing. I think Roman Dolidze is the more dangerous fighter and the guy who's been more active, more coming into his own, up there in age, some concerns, but ultimately, give me Roman Dolidze. I think he's going to win this fight and stamp his name as somebody to watch. He's my favorite Caucasian for a reason. Never missed a bet on the money line with this guy, and I might have to go to the well with him once again on Saturday night. I think it's a main event showcase for Roman Dolidze, the Caucasian, coming for the bands. Anything that you want to add, Wiz, anything you got to tell the people, let them know where can they find you and all the great work that you got going on, my man.
First to add, dare we say, I'm not talking about level of fighter, I'm talking about attributes. Marvin Vettori is the middleweight male version of Sam Hughes. Dare we say?
Oh my. Oh, dude, if he sees that, he's going to light us up in the comment section, dude.
I mean, point to the tape. Am I lying? But guys, first and foremost, please smash the like button. That's number one thing on my list here to cover. I've been working nonstop during Ramadan, fasting, partaking in it. Ramadan Kareem to whoever those who are, that are acknowledging and partaking. Grinding a lot in the gym, preparing for 2 competitions. April 26th, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Open here in Anaheim, and then May 30th, making my debut in Muay Thai in Anaheim, California. So a lot of heavy work in the gym at Classic Fight Team, at Rising Suns Muay Thai. A lot of great bodies there that I'm gaining a lot of experience from. So really happy with where I'm progressing, and overall I feel like I'm at my physical peak, and I'll keep everyone updated throughout this camp. Second thing, you can find me at Wizz MMA everywhere, YouTube and Twitter. And then you probably saw you could scroll back on the Instagram highlight there, and you can follow me on Instagram. I have it on my link tree too, to keep up with more day-to-day stuff. But Liam, thank you so much for having me again. This has been a great night of breakdowns, and looking forward to doing this again.
Absolutely, brother. It's always a pleasure. I'm here to enjoy a vacation, but you know that we can't start a vacation until we get all of our work done. So a lot of writing for me still to be done. I've got to preview the entire card, so y'all can look forward to that. That will be posted on Patreon as I write it. It will be posted on Roto Grinders when it is done. And otherwise, I'm going to be looking to exploit these New Jersey books a little bit this week, see how we can do. So God bless you all. Peace, love, and chicken grease. I hope that you guys have a great week. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and fire those off in the comment section down below. I would really appreciate the support as well. So if you don't have any comments or questions, you could still go down there and fire off a little bit of love and support, and it goes a long way for helping other people find the show. If you guys are new here, please go ahead and drop a like on the show. It helps other people, like I said, find it, but get subscribed as well, because we do this stuff each and every week, having conversations about the UFC, try and give you guys our honest takes from a betting perspective. You can tail fade or be indifferent, but that's what we try and do here on this show, try and give an informed take. I've been watching these fights for a very long time. My guy Wiz as well. Obviously, he's got pictures with Marvin. The guy's been training, for a long time in the gym, in the rooms, around pro fighters. So I hope that we gave you guys a, variety of perspectives. We had Lucrative on. We had our guy JB stop by. So everybody got a little bit of their piece. We had the sharpest chat in the game once again. So thank you to everybody for your contributions. Always much appreciated. Come back next time. We're having all the same fun again. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Until then, see you guys.